first Friday in February, and it might be cold outside, but here at UTAS, we don't mind it at all. GMT means wins. But can we keep it up this weekend against bottom of the league Harrogate? Swindle, how are you, mate?
Yeah, brilliant, buoyant. Another victory for the U's, the weekend gone by, and a trip that surely can't go wrong, and has a good history for Cambridge United.
Yeah, I was going to say, luckily, of all the places to play where we should win and we should comfortably come away with 3 points, luckily Harrogate hasn't got any demons for us at all. But we'll come on to that. I think, the biggest piece of news is that we are coming to you as, I'm calling it officially, Swindle, the best fan media in the country. And that's not me saying that. That isn't me saying that. That's Ali Maxwell from Not the Top 20. So if he is on the voting panel for the FSAs, that would do us a huge favour, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the recognition we've been yearning for these last 7 or so years, and it's nice to get it from peers and someone's opinion you value. Certainly a little bit unexpected and nice to hear. Went out of their way really to praise the podcast. So yeah, absolutely good merit from a great bunch of content creators as well. So yeah, absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's great, wasn't it? There's plenty of people who do amazing work and plenty of amazing bits of fan media to be recognised is great from two lads who, I mean, their podcast's great, as you say. I hope everyone who listens to this probably listens to that. They do amazing work to somehow I mean, they mentioned it, like they keep abreast of 72 teams. It's always a thing that really impresses me with them and like any of those, like the Gab Suttons of this world, like 72 teams to have the knowledge that they've got. I struggle with one. And even when we play people, it's like, even if I've seen them play, I struggle to say too much about them.
Yeah, I'm not that impressed. I support about 8 teams. It's well easy, mate.
It's nothing for you. You know the drill. They should call you up. There's some other stuff to talk about before we get on to the game and the preview for the game. We've got a new signing through the door, Swindle. I hope your panic was eased when Sean Raggett's name came up in lights on Monday afternoon.
It was an interesting one. I think, like many other fans, it wasn't necessarily the signing I was expecting, and certainly not the kind of mold of player I was expecting. But a signing's a signing from higher league opposition, someone with a number of appearances at a higher level, who's won promotion with good teams in fairly recent years. Of course, it goes without saying a Cambridge United signing has to come with injury woes, and of late he has carried in a few injuries. But I think there's merit to this player, and we love a big physical player at United. 6'5", absolute lump of a player, can go in for a tackle. And, a centre back to bolster, our back line is certainly useful. And yeah, I was quite kind of pleasantly surprised when he came through the door.
Does that make him our tallest player? Just on the spot?
Yeah, it must do. I think we're generally quite a short squad, I think, at the moment.
How tall's Watts? He's not going to be 6'5", is he? But
I reckon Watts probably like 6'2", maybe.
Yeah, right. Eastwood?
And then Eastwood's, yeah, somewhere similar. I don't think Morrow's, even that tall. So yeah, I think he'll be our tallest player. Yeah. But he also loves getting stuck in, does our new signing, and famed for losing a tooth but carrying on playing and scoring the winner. And there's a whole Twitter account dedicated to his lost tooth. Because
is that when he was at Pompey?
Yeah, and an absolute cult hero at Pompey, by the way, like a real stalwart, and played some incredible stuff for them.
Sorry to interrupt. I saw it was in passing on X, and it's just popped into my mind. Is he one of their top appearance makers? That can't be right, can it?
He's certainly made a lot of appearances for them in the EFL, so I think he's certainly up there.
Maybe there was like a clause to it type thing. He can't be there all time. I was thinking like, no way. But yeah, maybe in recent times or something. Yeah.
Certainly in recent times, and yeah, very fondly remembered. And also, I properly rate this. He lost the tooth and didn't get it replaced for like a year. It was front tooth, and he went one front tooth for about a year. So looks proper pirate, and gets a lot of love for that. And as I say, an X account dedicated to the missing front tooth as well. So yeah, a player that's not scared to get stuck in. And Harris referenced it in his, in reaction to it. He's a player who's got really good experience at this point in the season. I think it's someone who's, at the business end of a season at this level, he could be really useful to come in and help us kind of push towards getting promotion.
I think that's the big thing, really, isn't it? It's the sort of profile, maybe forget the position, as like of a career that I can totally understand why Harris would want to bring someone like that in. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And compared to like, you see a lot of you see a lot of teams go out and get first low knees who
Mm.
no one really knows anything about. They come from the youth squads of Premier League clubs or even Championship clubs. We've been there ourselves. I'm not saying that those players aren't very talented and there's plenty of them success stories, but it feels like in the sort of position we are, I can understand that almost someone who can have a calm head on their shoulders in the tough moments, which I'm sure will come. There will be some challenges. Obviously, there's still 3 months of the season left. I'll clarify it for you, Swindle. Raggett became the Portsmouth player with the most appearances for the club in the 21st century.
Well,
It's
there we
still,
go. I mean, that's very
it's
good.
it's not bad, is it? I mean, you're talking about a big football club there in Pompey, and the thing I remember about him isn't actually at Pompey. It was at Lincoln when I think he scored the goal that knocked Burnley out of the FA Cup when they beat them up there. So when I think Lincoln were non-league and Burnley were in the Prem, which weirdly on paper, like Lincoln beating Burnley in the cup doesn't seem like some huge upset, but it was at the time, and I'm pretty sure Raggett scored the goal. Was it in injury time? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember it was late
Sorry,
on,
extra time. Sorry,
certainly.
extra time. Was it extra time? No, it was late in the game. Maybe
Late in the
no.
game, I think. Late in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah. 89th minute winner. Look, I've got it right up in front of me.
There we
Uh,
go.
Here we go. Look at that. The first non-league team to reach that stage, to reach the fifth round in 103 years. So he's got a bit about him. There's more about him than, like we said, if we'd signed some 18-year-old from like Villa or something that you wouldn't know what to say. But are you surprised that we went and signed a centre half? We talked about the profile, but position wise, are you surprised when you saw a centre back come up?
There's a number of reasons that kind of make themselves kind of apparent that we're looking to Morrow, and Morrow has come back very briefly and then is out again, and there are questions about whether we're going to see any of Morrow again in a playing capacity, and I think it's useful to have someone else in there. We've had a pretty solid base in there with the likes of Kel Watts and Job, and I think Rossi has come in and maybe not quite reached the heights that he would have wanted to when given the chance. So I think bringing someone in like that is quite a shrewd choice. And like I say, a tall physical player, if someone gets injured and we need to bring someone on to protect a league, that's the type of player you want. So I think it's probably quite a clever signing. I think even Harris said it was quite late on, but to be offered a player like that kind of you know, in their 30s, loads of really big league experience, promotion experience, and yeah, just a kind of commanding player. I think you'd be stupid to say no, and to have that in your Arsenal up until the end of the season, I think is really useful. So I think it's maybe not the most expected signing, certainly not in the position, but I think it's a really useful one, and one that Neil Harris couldn't really turn down.
Yeah, it's that, and the other kind of theory I've got, which I'm not sure. I think, I mean, we'll see. It's just a theory that we've seen so much in recent weeks that Harris's kind of preferred formation has been that three at the back or five at the back or
Mm.
whichever you want to call it, but three sort of more centrally, three central defenders, let's say. With Watts is obviously a mainstay. Job's become a mainstay at least when Morrow's out, but you'd expect Job to keep his place. But with Morrow out, Gibbons has been playing there, and obviously Gibbons has done brilliant. And this is nothing, no slight on Gibbons at all. And in fact, the reason this theory is wrong is I'm not sure why you'd change that winning formula. But I can imagine Job's quite a sort of Job's got a bit of range about it in terms of he's a sort of player that feels like he wants to carry the ball. He's got really good like athletic physical qualities in terms of doing a lot of the running that maybe one of those lateral players would do, and the height of Raggett in the middle of the three. I could imagine against the right opposition again, it's nothing on a slight on the three that are in there now, but I can see how the option of having someone who's 6'5" playing in the middle of that three could be like an option that Harris is after, especially with Morrow's injury and as you said, Rossi really struggling for form basically since that Birmingham game, right? So yeah, so it's not one I really expected, but sort of as it happened, I kind of went, oh yeah, that makes quite a lot of sense.
Yeah, and also if you think, 5 games down the line, we're getting into the business end and we pick up a couple of injuries and we need to free up Gibbons to maybe move into a wider position, it also gives us an opportunity
Well,
to bring, Raggett in and kind of deputise for him. So I think
it,
it
it's
frees up squad
For sure,
rotation.
for sure. Sorry, so keen to get this point across. But yeah, no, it's exactly that. But because also Brophy's been playing left wing back, and Purrington's been sort of in and out of not squads. He's been
Mm.
in squads, but he hasn't seemed fully fit. He's always coming on with a sort of strap on his wrist. Again, like we've just won six on the bounce. You don't really want to mess with the winning formula. But I can see how exactly as you're saying, Gibbons potentially being freed up to cover left back might be something that's or left wing back might be something that's in his plans potentially, which we have seen him tuck in at that side of the pitch. So yes, good point. I think it's just those options at the back. We also know that like Harris is a very defensively minded manager. You can see how he said it was a late decision to bring Raggett in, and I can just see how he'd get there in terms of his thought process, that that was something that they really needed, especially if Morrow's decision. Well, that's kind of a question. The first thing I thought, Swindle, was there's been this rumor Morrow's, is that his third injury of the season, I think, because I think there was the clash with Eastwood, the one before Christmas, and then this is a separate one at, what is he, 37, I think. There was a few rumors flying around WhatsApp groups like, do you think that's him done? What do you think? Because that was the first thing that popped into my head. Obviously, I hope that's not true. That Morris' injury can't, is to a point where maybe he's thinking maybe that's one step too far at the age that he is.
Well, it's an interesting one because we spoke even before this last injury, and Morrow is clearly focusing on stuff off the pitch as well, which is absolutely the right thing to do. We saw Greg Taylor do it and Harrison Dunk do it with kind of gaining qualifications towards the end of their career. Morrow's lining up what's next in his career, and I think that's absolutely great. And I wonder if there's even a part of it, not to look ahead too far, but if we were to, be looking ahead to League One next season, I wonder if Morrow is thinking that maybe that's a step too far, and it's about kind of because if he's not quite fit enough to play now, which he isn't, which we know he isn't, and I think he probably came back too soon and picked up this injury in training, and now it's ultimately out again. He might be kind of thinking about making that next step just for his own benefit. But yeah, I think there is that argument with Morrow, and I think we've seen it already. As you say, three different injury layouts, and he came back and then suddenly is injured in training, which happens, I think, when a player tries to come back too quickly. So I don't know if it's anything to do necessarily with Morrow slowing down, but if he's picked up a couple of injuries that are now more difficult to shake off, then inevitably we're going to need more cover, and it's going to be harder for him to get back into the team when he becomes fit.
I wonder with Morrow, not to make this about him, but if uh, he's also eyeing up like a coaching role
Yeah.
potentially. I know you're right about his qualifications, and maybe it's a world outside football for him, but I wonder if, like, Harris clearly rates him so much as a leader. Maybe he wants to keep him around, like start integrating him to the coaching staff and a bit more of a different type of role within the setup. Anyway, it's not really about him today, is it? But it's an interesting thing that I think over the next couple of months we'll see a bit more, be a bit more clear. It probably does indicate, I would say, that Rossi's appearances, especially with, I forget about Bradshaw as well, who had so many brilliant sort of, not cameos, better than that, just appearances in the cup, performed to a really high level. He's another option who can play on the left side, centre back or left back. So Rossi's chances might be fewer and further between, which I think a fair few people listening might not hate too much. Are you surprised that the centre back was all we signed? Harris said in his presser that McConnell was quite a big part of the reason we didn't go and get another attacker in, without obviously knowing the options and who McConnell's up against. Are you surprised that that was all we went and got? And do you back that decision?
Yes, I was surprised, I think, in all honesty. And I think you and I spoke quite early on in January, and I think we were like, we'd probably expect two attacking players to come through the
Yeah.
door by the end of January. I think that was kind of an expectation that was held pretty widely by our fan base. And I think, we brought in one in Nevitt, and then, I think most people were expecting in those last couple of days somebody else would come in. I think you mentioned it a few weeks gone by that it may well be a kind of young loan signing, maybe, not had too much experience, or, somebody from maybe a bit lower down, but it never transpired. And it's interesting to hear Harris say about Glenn McConnell. And that, I guess that means that he's kind of, waiting in the wings, and could certainly feature more, and will hopefully be a bit more front and center. But I am surprised, and you've got to trust in Harris. You've said already multiple times on this podcast today, we've won six in a row. We're on a fantastic unbeaten run. We're playing really good football, and we're scoring goals now as well. It's not like we're short on goals. We're not nicking games 1-0. We've come out and win 3-0 away at a tough Oldham trip, last week, and then, looking ahead to Harrogate. And I think Harrogate, looking ahead to Harrogate, that's a real test. If you're a team that's chasing promotion, you're playing a team that's not won, in 4 months, then you want to go and put a few past them. You don't want to do what Swindon did last week and scrape past them 1-0 in the last 5 minutes. You want to go there and do a statement. But yeah, I think it's interesting that we didn't make another sign in. I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us. I think we've already mentioned previously that, there's a couple of players up there who have had injuries already this season, and one still to come back from that. So hopefully stars align, and those players kind of complement each other, and really make us a force to be reckoned with, and it's not the other way around where we get towards the last 5 games of the season and we're a little bit light up top.
Yeah, it's a funny one, this, I think, because I think for the sake of discussing it, we kind of have to assume it's not bullshit. We kind of have to assume that it's not just Harris saying it for the media, as like not excuse, but as a sort of front for the fact that they couldn't get who they were after. Let's just assume it's all true because why not? He deserves it. If the options are, and again, this is a big if, and we've got no idea, if the options are a Premier League or Championship club, 18-year-old winger, I'm sure he's got a lot of talent, but has never played anything beyond the reserve team, what's it called, PL2 or whatever it is, or anything like that, of that sort of standard, under 21s games, has never played like proper men's football. It's a really unknown quantity. Would you prefer that unknown quantity? You've got no idea what you're going to get with these guys, or a guy who's come through your youth system, who's played big roles in games for you this year, this season, as much as 3 months ago at Barrow, he was brilliant when he came into that squad. And someone who knows the players, knows the place, is like in not just knows the squad and the sort of personalities in it, but also the club as a whole. I can see why the decision would be made where it's like, well, no, I'd rather have our own player, someone who I have already coached for nearly a year now. And I can understand that. And maybe there's a bit of raw quality with this Premier League one that you could be going and seeking. But then it's, what does that do to unsettle McConnell or other players in the squad who, you're bringing another entity into the team, if you see what I'm saying. So assuming it's true, I can actually personally see the thought process. As long as, it could just be Harris fronting up to the media. It's worth saying that, because it could be that they had someone lined up and we didn't get him. And it's a way of spinning that narrative to be a positive, if you see what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would kind of caveat that was, there's a fair few greedy football fans out there who would have gladly have had both, also bring in that
True.
that player.
But that's both where, like I say, you're bringing someone else into a team. What does that do to McConnell's confidence? Then if you
competition for places, but the flip
is
side,
it's a balance, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. You're not wrong. And I look, I was with you. I thought we'd go and sign someone of that sort of in those positions, those attacking midfield positions. I really did. So I'm just saying, I can get on board with it, and I think Harris deserves us, as you said right at the start of your answer, for us to get on board with it as a decision that they've made, because they've earned that right. But time will tell. That's the only thing. The other factor in this is, like, we don't really know, me and you, how far away Mayer is, for example. Mayer might be ready in like 5-6 games, which actually in the grand scheme of things probably isn't that far away, because then he's ready for the whole run in, and then there's a couple of places, it gives us a bit of a buffer before getting down to, I guess, not down to where McConnell's standing is in the squad. So anyway, time will tell. The first of those 6 games, anyway, would be away at Harrogate, as you've already hinted at in your answer a second ago. Not on the best of runs, bottom of the league, Harrogate. Let's start with a preview with Neil from Harrogate.
Right then, news fans. I'm joined by Neil Hurst. Neil, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, good to have you on. Given the circumstances, still good to have you on. Neil, tell us a bit about yourself and your journey with Harrogate Town.
As you'll probably detect by my accent, I'm not local to North Yorkshire. I'm actually a Liverpudlian, but I've lived this way for quite a few decades now. My firstborn was born in Harrogate, so we adopted them as a team many, many years ago. The first game I went to go and watch was against Worcester City in the Conference North. So I've been following them for quite some time now. Some real highs and, well, this season, some real lows.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, a really tough season for Harrogate so far. Not such a bad start, but since September, it's been really, really tough season. Why has that been, Neil?
Good question. I mean, your summary was really, really accurate. The start of the season was wonderful, and hopes were high. At the first 4 games, we won 2 and we drew 2, one of which was against you. It's derailed seriously since then. Our last win in the league was the 27th of September. That's on or around 20 games without a win. What's gone wrong? I think there's a couple of reasons why. I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think some of the players have not been good enough, and which is kind of reflective of our budget and our ground, our attendance, our capacity to take players away from the big boys. I think that's also best illustrated when Notts County have taken our amazing goalkeeper Belshaw away from us last month. I think also as well from the manager's point of view, I don't think he is. I think he's been quite predictable this season. His formation and his setup and his game plan has been, by and large, quite similar and quite readable and quite easy to plan against. And also, his in-game management also hasn't been wonderful either. His willingness to change formation, players is often left far too late, I think, for the palate of most of the fans at Harrogate Town.
Yeah, all sounds fairly fair, and as you say, a pretty tough last 20 games or so. Last time out, a bit of a galling one at home to Swindon, them scoring in the last 5 minutes. Has there been a case of bad luck this year, or has it been more, not quite had the minerals to be at this level?
Well, I think the other thing I would say about Simon Weaver is he has this season generally been pretty conservative with a small c with his lineups and how he plays, and I think that's really best illustrated not too long ago when we were playing Notts County, when we were playing Newport County, who were bottom of the league, and he set up with a very much a holding midfield, two holding midfielders, and he set out his stall almost not to lose and not to go out and win. And I think as a consequence, we went out and we lost 3-0 and that game, and that was really, really, it was a dire moment. We were really looking for something to look forward to, and that game was key, I think, in turning our fortunes, and it just didn't happen. I think against Swindon Town, it's the first game in, it's not even weeks, we're talking months, the first game in months that there is a performance that you can actually see some level of improvement. The players were working really hard. I think they are actually working for the manager. And it was a unfortunate mistake by quite a young goalkeeper in our nets who conceded a penalty. It was a stonewall penalty. I'm not arguing against that, but it was a foolish mistake. The ball was going away from the goal. He didn't need to do what he did. And in summary, I think we had pretty much hard lines against Swindon Town. The games preceding that, we've got absolutely everything we've deserved, which is absolutely nothing. We've scored the least amount of goals in the league, which, I don't know, 20 goals we've scored. That's our real problem. Our real problem is scoring or looking like scoring.
Yeah, I mean the league table doesn't tell many lies, and of course, 5 points adrift now. It's not undoable. But is there a belief at all that there's an ability for Harrogate to be able to do anything here?
Honestly, I think not. It was only a few weeks ago that I kind of resigned myself to imminent relegation, and I think if you ask most fans around the ground, I think they would probably say the same as well. There are, at the end of every game, and it has been a game for months, big boos towards the manager. For the listeners who don't know, Simon Weaver is the manager. His dad, Irving Weaver, is the owner of the club. And for that reason, we're saying he's untouchable. It certainly would appear that way. I can't think of too many managers, if I'm honest, who would go 4 months and a week, I think it is, since the last league victory. Nobody would be given that amount of time. So I'm not saying he's not untouchable, but he's certainly had a longer tenure than most managers, I think, in that position.
Yeah, certainly. Sounds a pretty fair assessment and tough times there. Well, if we turn our attention then towards Saturday, of course, never an easy game in League Two and welcoming Cambridge United. How can we expect Harrogate to set up in this game? Kind of form aside, how can we expect to see Harrogate kind of shape up against Cambridge United?
I think it is pretty predictable. I think we'll have a back four. I fully expect him to match what he played formation wise and personnel wise against Swindon Town. So that's four at the back with Slater at left back and Cass at right back, and Heffernan and Gibson at centre half. He will play with two holding midfielders. Morris, former Newport County player, and Jack Evans, who we got in from Halifax. Then three in front of them: Marsh on the right, Emerson Sutton on the left, and Smith in the middle. And up front is Aqua, lad who came in the transfer window from Dundee, but I think he's played around Division 2 before. So, I mean, out of those players, the ones that potentially are at risk of not playing, I would imagine Marsh, who just came in this window from Barnsley, didn't fare particularly well, and he was hooked, I think, at half-time against Swindon. So he may well be replaced by Ellis Taylor, who's just come back from 3 months out injured. And then the other one, perhaps at risk of not playing, is Aqua, big lad up front. And that's by virtue of the fact that since he's come in, he's not scored. And perhaps he's getting a bit leggy, and it's opportunity to give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting to hear how Harrogate might set up. It's a tough question at times like this when form is low. But if you had to pick a player or two for Cambridge United fans to look out for, and someone who might be able to spark a bit of inspiration for you, who might that be?
Yeah, there's probably two players that I'd probably call out here. Smith in the midfield. He generally plays the number 10 position. Quite slight lad, but tricky, good touch. He came at the start of the season, a signing from Maidenhead. And yeah, you'll see him on a lot of the set pieces, and you'll see him dribble comfortably. Not necessarily quick, but just very comfortable on the ball, and he's got an eye for a pass. I think the second player I'd call out as well is a recent acquisition, Emerson Sutton. And he reminds me, if you're familiar with Oddo, who used to play for Harrogate Town. He went off to sign for Peterborough when he left us. He's a winger. He came in from QPR. Very quick, great engine, very tricky. Kind of a knock and run kind of player, but I'm probably underselling him a little bit. We haven't seen too much of him, but of the little we have seen of him, he looks like he could be a potential player who can unlock a door.
Brilliant. Well, certainly interesting to hear. Obviously, Cambridge United on good form, famously in the league, and it's one of those mismatches that you see. But anything could happen, and a potential banana skin for Cambridge coming to Harrogate with no disrespect meant. How do you think Saturday's game going to go, and ultimately, what do you think the result and the score's going to be?
Well, I think when Swindon Town arrived yesterday, they were expecting to dominate the game and win easily, hands down. And as I already alluded to earlier on, I don't know whether they were complacent. I don't know what it was, but we definitely give them a run for the money. And if it weren't for a rookie mistake, we would have got something from the game. Absolutely. However, I went to the Cambridge game at your place at the start of the season, and whilst it was 1-1, you battered us, and we were very lucky to get away with a point. I'm not so sure we're going to fare as lucky this time, and I fully expect you to win. And if you look at the facts, I think you've got the best defense in the league, and we're the lowest scorers in the league. So that would kind of tell me everything I need to know, and I would fully expect you to win by a couple of goals to nil.
Well, yeah, I think that when Harrogate came to Cambridge sticks long in the mind. I think United fans, we expected to win that game after at half time, and we didn't. So if Harrogate stick in like they did in that game, anything could happen. And of course, we wish you all the best and ultimately survival for this season, whether it happens or not. But good luck for the rest of it, and hopefully your fortunes pick up after Saturday. Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure, and safe journey up to North Yorkshire to anyone travelling up.
Thanks very much, Neil. Thanks, Swindle. Swindle, you did that interview. I haven't had a chance to listen yet. So why don't you tell us how you found Neil? Not as in you found not how you found his number.
Yeah,
find him in a lay-by the M11 or something.
Yeah, met him down the pub. One thing led to another. No, Neil, great guy, eternal optimist. Incredible to speak to a fan who was able to kind of look at it a little bit objectively and not just completely down in the dumps. He was, he was very real about it. It's been an awful time for them. I think an interesting fact about this Harrogate side is the fact that they've stuck with their manager through this. Their manager, who is the son of their owner, which I think is now throwing up a little bit of controversy.
And the longest serving, sorry, manager in all of England, right?
Yeah. And certainly there's a little bit of nepotism kind of conversation kicking in now. And yeah, a manager who's not won for 4 months and a week or whatever it is, still having his job and kind of not necessarily being too questioned by the board is starting to annoy fans a little bit. I think Neil was very kind of open about how they really had a good start to the season. Harrogate actually started really well and had a few wins in their first few 6 or 7 games, and that's probably where the majority of their points have come from. They're only on 18 points now, but amazingly only 5 points from safety. So I would say that they're probably, whilst they're feeling pretty down, they're not completely out. We've seen a team overturn a 5-point deficit from here before, and we'll see it again. So I think he was very real about their chances against us, in very good form. But we both referenced that game, back at the Abbey when Harrogate came here, and we pumped them for the first half and then sat back and they came into it and ultimately went away with the point. So I don't think there's going to be any complacency from United going into this, or there certainly shouldn't be anyway.
There definitely shouldn't be, because you've mentioned the Swindon game on Tuesday night a second ago. That was a big one in the sense that I think Swindon, when I looked at about 80 minutes, like they hadn't had a shot in the whole second half, basically. And that it just shows that Harrogate maybe aren't like quite the mugs that bottom of the league might indicate they are, and the run they're on.
No, certainly not. And they were unlucky in a way. They've got a very young keeper. Their keeper was kind of sniped by another Football League team in the January transfer window. So they had a young keeper who's actually been doing really well. Sadly, gave away a bit of a naive penalty near the end of that game. But apparently Harrogate were kind of containing it pretty well and looked kind of on for a clean sheet and a draw. So I think Harrogate, there is a little bit of hope there. I think there's been glimmers of hopes in performances. I think, their lack of goals scored and goals conceded. I mean, obviously, as bottom of the table, that tends to be what happens. But I think there are glimmers of hope, and they're not out yet. So I think they're a dangerous team to go and play at the moment.
Dangerous team. Do you think, as far as dangerous
like a banana skin at the bottom of a long staircase, rather than
yeah. No, definitely you can't. I mean, you can't go into these games with like. You can't go into these games with the opinion that you're just going to walk all over them. In and amongst their terrible results, let's be honest. I mean, they haven't won since September. There is also a draw at Notts County, where I'm pretty sure they only named 3 subs in that game. I'm pretty sure they had a crazy injury crisis at the time. That's going back a little bit now, a couple of months, but it just shows like this team's clearly got spirit. A team the size of Harrogate with a manager who's been there for that long, a family club, literally. You can tell they're going to have serious character as a side. So definitely can't take it lightly. Having said that, we are on a hell of a run. What I need you to do now, first of all, is I hear you've got a scout up there looking at the weather, because it looks terrible from the forecast. But apparently people up there are saying it's fine.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I have a scout there, but I also grew up in the north, and the weather forecasts that are portrayed online and generally in media are not reflected of how it actually is. I mean, it rains constantly up north, but not like the weather forecast might suggest. I think there's been kind of light rain throughout the week, and certainly it's wet, but it's always wet. And I think, there's going to be a little bit more rain tomorrow, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. A friend who lives 10 miles away has said, yeah, it was sunny out and the ground was damp, but nothing to worry about. So I think football Twitter or X community is probably getting a little bit excited about the potential of a game being called off because of bad weather. But I'd be very surprised actually if it comes to that. We'd need a lot of rain between now and then, and a cold night, I think.
The one thing is, you would think if they get half a chance, they'd probably rather delay playing us, would they? I know that's not how they think, because also at the end of the day, it's the referee who makes the decision, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it doesn't really work like that. But in this hypothetical world.
And also, I think, Tom Walker of This Very Parish raised a point. They're probably looking forward to a massive gate. This is over 1,000 Cambridge United fans.
What world are we living in? Where does 1,000 United fans going to Harrogate? It's amazing.
23 grand is they're making off Cambridge United fans, arriving alone. So I think it's certainly. I think they'll want to get it out of the way as well. You don't want a backlog of fixtures. I don't think they're, we're a scary prospect for a team that are bottom of the league, but we're not terrifying. So I think they probably just want to get the game done and see what they come out with. So yeah, I think the weather will be fine, and I think ultimately we'll see, but if it's one of those blowy, wet northern days when we're playing the game, it could make for really interesting conditions and a tricky day out for everyone involved.
Yeah, that's a good point. The conditions are going to be an interesting thing because we play such silky football. We'll be thrown right off our game. Go on. What's your lineup and score prediction?
I mean, don't fix what's not broke, right?
Yeah,
We've
I
just gone
think so.
away. We've just gone up to the north and lined up and weathered a storm. Not weathered a storm, but kind of gone through a tricky patch in a game and then come through and put a team to bed, which we've been so bad at doing over the past 8, 9, 10 years, whatever. We've never quite got the knack of putting games to bed, and it's so refreshing to be able to see Cambridge United come out and do that really convincingly. Someone like Apare, who's been questioned about his end product in recent weeks, coming up and standing up and be counted, winning the penalty, scoring 2 goals. I feel like all over the pitch we were just really improved. I think it's really nice to see Pelly playing further up. I think Ben Knight, is putting a big middle finger up to all those critics at the start of the season, one of them being myself. And I just think we were really well organised. I like Ball and McLaughlin in the middle as well. And I just wouldn't change anything. If we can afford to not change that starting lineup, then I wouldn't. And it's a bit of a boring take, but I think it's the right
No,
take.
no.
We're on such a good run, great momentum. We're close to making history as far as Cambridge United are concerned, and that really shouldn't be our focus. We should be doing it game by game and looking for another 3 points and looking to kind of consolidate where we are and push towards automatic promotion and consolidate that. So yeah, but I would keep it as we are and go out and win this game against Harrogate comfortably.
I would definitely keep it the same. I don't think that's a boring take at all. I think it's just why fix what ain't broke. I don't think there's any news of any injuries. The only one is coming back is Smith, who was in the photos in the training ground. But again, why rush him back if we don't need to? If they're good to go, these lads, just do it again, run it again, in my opinion. And you've got so many options off the bench. Like that bench is getting stronger and stronger by the week with players like Smith coming back. So
I,
yeah,
I think I think that sorry, I just think that's a really important thing as well. If it's 0-0 at 65 minutes against Harrogate on Saturday and the fans get a little bit antsy and a little bit edgy, imagine bringing some of those players on off the bench. I mean, what a luxury to have. You could bring on someone like Lavery, you could bring on Kaikai, bringing on players like that, even Nevitt. Like, I
yeah.
really think it's like a really good thing to be blessed with. And, even a George Hoddle coming on and changing the game. So I think using our squad in its entirety and not just the 11 that start the game is a really important move and something that Harris has really got better at and improved this season.
I wonder if you see McConnell on the bench, if Harris has given him a bit of a sort of kick, like, I've backed you in the presser. If we need to call upon you, like, go and show me what
Mm.
you're made of. That would be interesting. Maybe it's thinking a step too far. What's your score prediction?
I don't think it's going to be as easy as some people are thinking. I think some people are thinking we're going to go there and absolutely romp it. I think we'll get a couple of goals. I think we'll go 2-0 up and then I think Harrogate might get one back and make it a little bit dangerous for us. I'm going to go 2-1 United.
See, I'm going. I kind of agree with where you're thinking. I'm going 1-0 United, mainly because little stat that was mentioned on the last pod. It's now 10 home games for Harrogate. They've only scored twice, and I just think the one thing is, I mean, this could be famous last words. We're about to talk about the game that is just making me made me laugh. There is that I think this United side with Harris's defensive record, I don't think it's the game where they improve that record. Football's a stupid game, though. You never know. And I've been wrong plenty of times before. I was wrong when we last went to Harrogate. 5-4. Everyone listening will remember this game. What are your memories of that crazy night?
Well, one of them sticks really strong in the mind, and if you partake in our Substack threads, you'll know what I'm talking about. Greg Taylor having a little bit of a horror show last time out, ball coming back, and a defensive error, letting Harrogate in and scoring. Is Kel Watts's thigh pass gonna come unstuck at Harrogate this weekend? Is that where their goal's gonna come from? A misplaced
Imagine.
Kel Watts thigh pass, and suddenly Harrogate are in and score. it's a horribly chilling prediction to make, and I really hope it doesn't come true. But that's the one that sticks in my mind. I mean, I remember all the kind of stuff outside of the game, fans up trees with ladders, and that being all the COVID, and the promise of promotion, and people celebrating before the game had kicked off. I know a lot of people who we're friends with had gone round to different people's houses in preparation to kind of celebrate together and make a night of it. And then what unfolded was this absolute horror show. We pulled ourselves back into the game and then still managed to contrive to lose it. I really hope Saturday is more uniform and less complicated than that.
It'd be hilarious if we went and won 5-4, I think, this Saturday, just to like really avenge it. That would be amazing. The other amazing thing about that night is one of those classic situations where, because we only needed a point, didn't we? That was all we needed. And there's a photo of like the promoted signs, for when you do the trophy, not the trophy lift, but you know what I mean? You celebrate after the game and you see them after there's the photos, and it's like, that's the last thing I needed after the game.
Someone's just made a mental point that I'd forgotten about this game. Harrogate had made 8 changes.
I know. You forgot that. Yeah, yeah.
I forgot that. Right.
They had the FA Trophy final on the... We played this game on the Friday night, and I think that game was the Monday. The FA Trophy, I mean, because it was bank holiday, one of the bank holidays. It was bank holiday at the start of May, it must have been, I guess.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Must have been, yeah. And they had the FA Trophy game on the Monday. Their season was done. They had nothing left to play for. So they made 8 changes, brought in loads of the fringe players so that no one got injured for the... No, it wasn't the trophy. Yes, it was a trophy, sorry, because it was delayed from COVID. That's what it was. So it's from the year that they went up the year before. And Brendan Kiernan, who I'm pretty sure had scored like 1 goal in 1,050 appearances for them before, scored that hat trick. And you could never, to just need a point to be in the position we put ourselves in, and then get back in the game, and then somehow still lose it. It's definitely one of the maddest games of football I've ever watched. There's still the off chance we might do a special pod on it, but I'm not sure our availability is all going to line up properly. But maybe we should do it at some point in the future, because we've talked about doing a full rewatch of it, and I think it would be hilarious. My favourite memory, just from a personal perspective, is going round to Tom Walker's. We put a bottle of champagne in the fridge at the start of the game, and at half time, he just quite sullenly just went, "I'll go and take the champagne out of the fridge," just quite quietly, which I always love. Anyway, we'll talk about that game again, I'm sure. Maybe a few mentions on the review show, given our 5-4 win this weekend. The last thing to talk about today, Swindle, is how's your marathon training going? Half marathon, sorry. I mean, or train for the marathon. How's it going?
Half marathon training going fine, mate. Yeah, up in the distances. I'm not quite in the same kind of bracket as the other 2 lads. I think our times will differ by quite a lot. I think they might have had a couple of pints by the time I make it to the pub, but it's all about getting through it.
You'll have had a few pints when you go around, I imagine. Mate.
Well, exactly. Hopefully, the usual fans are there, kind of handing out the water. I go water pint, just to kind of.
You're so sensible nowadays.
Exactly. I'm a professional, but no, loads of runners running it for the foundation, and nice to see that we've got Caspel on board this year as well.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? So you and Caspel are running it for the foundation. Tom's running it for himself, so we can get a massage. But the 3 of you, he's running it in spirit for the foundation as well. And we've got a donation link if you want to submit to obviously brilliant cause, brilliant Cambridge United related cause. Josh Colson's also running it for the foundation. All the money's obviously going to the same place. So if you want to support the UTAS runners, there's a link in the description to this pod, and we will tweet it out as well over the weekend. So I'm sure you'll see it over the next month in plenty of places as we give everything a good plug. We're pretty good at plugging stuff, aren't we? So we will give that a good plug, and there's nothing better to donate to than that. I'll be there. I'll be supporting you, mate. I'll be having a few pints as we go around. So if you see any of us, George will be knocking around, I'm sure. Do say hello, especially if you're a Coconut tier member. £5 a month to sign up. You know where to go, under theabbeystand.com. Something else that I'll plug is I wrote a piece with Liam Hughes, promotion winning legend, sorry. Lockdown legend still in my head from Harrogate away a second ago. I wrote a piece with Liam Hughes, spoke to him just before Christmas actually a while ago. Such a good chat. I mean, that guy's had like tragic sort of troubles that he's had to go through in his career, and great to see him doing so much better. And it's a long read. It's for Coconut tier members over on undertheabbeystand.com, but I really recommend you go and relive some memories as well, because obviously he was a part of an amazing squad. So yeah, head there for that. So where will we go for a pint after the Cambridge half, Swindle?
I knew that was coming. I just really hoping you wouldn't miss
I
the
just
last plug.
I just thought, how am I going to get this last bit in?
Well, it's perfect. Once you come across the finish line, pick up your medal on Midsummer Common, swing a left and go over the Fort St George Bridge. You'll find the Old Spring One Ferry Path, Cambridge CB4 1HB. Julian, take the rest away.
Yeah, well, I think on that day, I would be surprised if you'd get any sort of discount because it might be a bit busy, but you might be able to get your 10% off any time with a United season ticket or a match ticket. They're legends in there. I'm absolutely sure that you can get 10% off a lovely meal. You can get yourself a lovely skepasti after your run. Swindle, what a thing to have after your run. A lovely skepasti. That would be perfect, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Get those whatever they're called back on board.
Carbs?
I don't know. Carb loading. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm talking
I think
about.
you did the carbs before, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm carbs during. I'm going to have a skepasti at every mile.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, halfway skepasti. Maybe I'll bring you a skepasti halfway. That is good stuff, actually. But on a match day, you can obviously get your £15 Matchday Meal Deal burger, fish and chips, or skepasti and a beer. And there is also a Saturday happy hour on between 6 and 7. You all know that by now, though. We'll see you there. Swindle, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Hopefully, the dangerous Harrogate don't spoil our weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, mate.